Hello guys, and welcome to part 2 of 6 true and chilling Ouija board stories. Today we're going to finish up with 3 more stories of terrifying experiences that people have had while playing with a Ouija board. I'll link the video to part 1 in the description below if you're interested. So please, lock the doors, shut the curtains, turn the lights down low and grab your favorite drink and sit back and listen to some chilling tales. A creepy doll. I have a terrifying story about a Ouija board. I got a call from my cousin who said that he, his brother, his dad, and his best friend were using a Ouija board in their basement. Prior to starting, they had taken a large creepy porcelain doll out of the room and placed it in the adjacent room facing down on a pile of towels. My cousin took a short break because the board was spouting nonsense and he went to go use the bathroom. While he was away, his dad, his brother, and his friend started asking the board questions without him, one of the questions being, who was in the other room? It just started spouting random numbers. When my cousin came back into the room, his brother told him that they were just going to put the board away because they were getting nothing. Before he did, however, he showed my cousin the last question they asked. My cousin was shocked and said, "Dude, that's my social security number." That's when they all decided to keep going and get more serious about it. They started to talk to whatever was spewing answers out. It told my cousin he would die in the Air Force. At this point, they told the entity that they were communicating with to prove itself. It then spelled out the word doll. They opened the door to check on the porcelain doll that they had laid in the other room. When they did this, however, the doll was standing upright in front of the door, staring right at them. Everyone freaked out and ran out of the house. His best friend burned the Ouija board, and I'm pretty sure he went nuts for a few months. My cousin, for some reason, then joined the Air Force. He's stationed on a base in Europe now. Max is always around. When I was about 14, my best friend had a sleepover for her birthday at her house. Being the silly little girls that we were, we decided to make a Ouija board to use. But we didn't really know any of the rules, like making it say goodbye. After an hour or so, I wandered off to read some tarot cards and watch the rest of The Exorcist with the other couple of girls who didn't want to commune with the spirits. Rereading that last sentence, I sound like such a stereotype. I still use tarot cards though, so I never grew out of that phase, it seems. Here's where it got weird. After I left, the spirit talking to my friends changed, as in it switched to a different spirit altogether. His name was Max, and he was looking for me. I've never known a Max in my life. My friends would yell out what he was saying as the planchette moved, and I was writing it off as them teasing me. That's until he started giving them information about me that no one at the party knew. Things about minor abuse I was facing, and other little things. That freaked me right out. I begged for them to stop playing, even after Max tried to convince me that he was not trying to hurt me. My friends were awesome and stopped playing before I started crying, and I thought that was the end of it. The next time a Ouija board came out was the following year, and only one girl from the original party was among the group. We were baking a cake and the buzzer went off, so she and I headed upstairs to take it out of the oven. When we got back to the group, another girl turned to me and asked, "Who's Max?" Apparently he stuck around after that first time. If my friends want to use a Ouija board, they don't invite me over unless they want to speak to Max. He's always around. A few times in my life, I've heard a voice call out my name. It usually makes me stop for a minute. It hasn't happened to me in a while, but it has happened to me at least twice. And every time it has happened, I would have been in the path of a car going too fast to stop before it would have hit me. I strongly believe Max has stuck around to be helpful, but had we not pulled out that Ouija board, I would never have known about him. Playing with demons. Many people think Ouija boards are harmless toys that a group of teens might play with when they're all hanging out on a Saturday night. Think going into the graveyard with a Ouija board is a fun idea? After all, what could possibly happen with a bunch of dead people? Well, you better think again. Many cases we go on that end up being demonic in origin stem from Ouija board play. The following true story comes from Wallingford, Connecticut. We, Connecticut paranormal investigators, were called out by a relatively new paranormal group who had stepped into a nightmare. There were two reasons for the call. One was due to the fact that a young child was involved and they had heard about my work with children in the paranormal. And the other was that they just weren't experienced enough to handle what was going on. We arrived on a cold Saturday night in January. I met with the group's founder. We'll call him John. He filled me in on the activity they had experienced during their initial investigation, and to be honest with you, at the time, I felt he had to be making up at least some of the story. He claims that there were cabinet doors opening and closing, voices, cold spots, knocking noises, footsteps, and just about everything else one could experience during a paranormal investigation. It was too much to believe, and upon meeting the young family involved in the middle of this whole thing, it left me with a feeling we were being set up. I almost packed everything up and left. This would have been one of the biggest mistakes I could have made in all my years investigating the paranormal. What I was about to experience probably happens in less than 1% of the cases an investigator goes out on. I met the family of three, and the guy's brother and girlfriend. The apartment renters' names were Joe, his girlfriend Gail, and their baby Jamie. Joe's brother and girlfriend accompanied them for the evening. They all looked like they had stepped out of the Addams family house, which made me very suspicious immediately. There was a baby involved in this, so we had to be very careful in how we conducted our investigation. I asked them why they brought the baby, and they told me they couldn't find a sitter. I would have preferred the child wasn't there, but I couldn't change that. The baby's father came up to me and asked me if it would be possible for an investigator to be with them at all times. I asked him why. He told me he had feared for their lives. I took one look at his face, and I believed him. He looked like someone who probably hadn't slept in weeks, and he was sweating like he had just run a marathon. He told me a story of a demonic-looking being that would terrorize his whole family, and would follow them wherever they went. He had confirmed all the things that John had told me when I first arrived there. I really started to feel sorry for this family, but I just couldn't shake the creepy feeling their appearance gave me. The reason for my feelings will become apparent later. The investigation started just like any other. We conducted interviews, as well as set up night vision cameras everywhere along with wireless audio devices all hooked up to our DVR. We have a number of different EMF meters which measure magnetic energy, temperature measuring devices, and a host of handheld video cameras and 35mm cameras. What I noticed immediately were the extremely high readings we were getting on the EMF gauges. Every room had these readings, which is extremely unusual. I thought for sure that this was a power company problem. Anyone exposed to EMF readings like this over a long period of time can experience hallucinations and health problems of all kinds. I thought to myself, this must be why they are experiencing such bizarre happenings. I thought to myself they all must be hallucinating. But this turned out to be wishful thinking. The next thing we noticed were crazy temperature changes. In the past, whenever we have experienced temperature drops where you can see your breath, we knew things were going to take an ugly turn. I am sensitive to spirit activity, and can usually tell you when there is spiritual activity in the room. I didn't get this feeling when I walked through the door, and with what they told me about the activity that occurred here, I did expect to at least feel something, but I didn't. And so the investigation began. The family and friends pretty much stayed in the living room, but would occasionally come into the kitchen where we had our equipment set up. I still couldn't get over how strange they all looked. I felt like I was in some gothic movie. The investigator from the other group, John, had walked up to me again and stated how fearful the family was to be there. They again requested that an investigator stay with them at all times. They seemed to be genuinely scared. And to be honest, so did the other group. This didn't exactly give me a warm, fuzzy feeling. At least I brought along some of my group, all of whom have experience in dealing with just about every situation you could imagine. Most of the investigators stayed outside due to the size of the apartment. We went around in groups of 2. I asked the couple who lives there where they were experiencing the activity, and they told me in just about all of the rooms. I asked them if there was a room that they hadn't really heard any activity, and they told me that the nursery has been pretty quiet. My feeling is that spirits will hide in the same place all the time. They do not want us to know where they are, so usually you will not have any paranormal experiences in these areas. However, if you are sensitive to paranormal activity and you start poking around, this will more times than not bring out the worst in them, if they are there. With all of this in mind, I headed right up to the nursery. Immediately upon entering the nursery, I felt a very strong presence which made me sick to my stomach. I heard a male voice whisper, and what sounded like boxes being moved around in the closet. As I moved to the closet, the sound got louder. I continued to move closer to the open closet door. I heard all of this movement going on, but couldn't see anything moving in the closet. The sound started to go from the closet to the attic, and continued on for a few minutes. While all of this was going on, one of the investigators from the other group came into the room, heard the noise, and immediately left. I guess this was to be expected as they were a new group. It takes a while to build up a thick skin to paranormal activity. One thing I did notice, however, was that when he spoke, I saw his breath. With all that was going on, I didn't even realize the temperature had dropped that low. I stood my ground until the noise stopped. When it stopped, the room became much lighter and it felt much warmer. At the very least, I felt as though we were dealing with a very negative spirit. Upon listening to the audio from the nursery, we had heard a Latin phrase stated 3 times. It sounded like, "Et mecium." We were unable to determine what this meant, but it sounded Latin, but it also sounded like there were other voices as well. We also heard a door open and close a few times, and footsteps even though there wasn't anyone in the room. At one point, the baby started to cry on the first floor and you could hear the entity saying nasty things up in the nursery. When I originally experienced the activity in the nursery, I also heard it go up into the attic. I decided to place a video camera up in the attic and let it run for about an hour. Upon viewing the footage, we saw the bottom half of a human-looking figure come up out of the floor and then disappear right over the nursery. I am sensitive to paranormal activity, so while I was not only dealing with this, I was also feeling this incredible crushing presence that made it obvious that I was not wanted there. We started making our way downstairs. As we were heading downstairs, I saw the couple who was renting the apartment, along with their baby, and his brother and his girlfriend. Again, I took another look at their strange appearance, and I knew in my heart that they had something to do with what was going on here. Joe, who all the activities seemed to revolve around, came up to me again and requested that an investigator stay with him and his family at all times. He was worried about being attacked. He told me that the entity had physically attacked him before, shoving him down the stairs and throwing things at him. He also asked me if we could provoke this thing, and I told him no. I questioned him on why he would want us to provoke it, especially if he's scared to death about this thing attacking him. He didn't have an answer for this, which obviously made me very suspicious about his intentions. I met with all the investigators outside and told them that I did not want them provoking anything in that house. I felt at this point that we could be dealing with a demonic entity. I did not want to place anyone in danger. I went back into the home and began asking questions of this evil spirit to see if we could get some kind of response, either audibly or on our recording equipment, which would have then been called EVPs, or electronic voice phenomenon. Upon beginning the EVP session, we immediately felt the temperature begin to drop. You could feel the pressure drop in the room as well. We recorded temps in the 40s, which had dropped from our baseline temperature of 68 degrees. We also heard footsteps on the second floor. We didn't hear any audible responses to our questions. However, when we listened to our wireless audio, we received a number of responses. One of the strangest things we witnessed after reviewing our video footage of the following day was that when Joe was looking away from us, he had black rings around his eyes, but as he turned toward us to talk, the dark rings would disappear. We not only have this on video, we have stills showing these dark circles. With all that went on that night, I wasn't going to rule out possession. As we continued to review the video footage, we were witnessing Joe reacting to some orbs that were flying around the room. At one point, he actually ducked out of the way. Joe's cat also reacted to a couple of orbs. We saw its ears go back as it snarled at seemingly nothing a few times. Joe told me that a psychic had told him that he had a vortex in his living room. I believe that most psychics are frauds. But in this case, we did see orbs swirling around the supposed vortex area in the living room. After an incredible evening of paranormal happenings, we told the family we would review the evidence and get back to them hopefully with some answers. Over the next few days, we went over all of the audio and video. I was convinced that we were dealing with a demonic entity. I've experienced the power of the demonic before, and it is usually unmistakable, and anything can happen to anyone involved. It doesn't matter where you live or how far you travel. When you have an attachment by a demon, you can't hide. Having a strong religious faith is possibly your only hope. I called famed psychic Lorraine Warren, who just happens to live one town over from me. She's always willing to help in situations like this. She's also a very good connection to the church. We arranged to have a blessing done for the family and the home. That was until I received a strange call from Joe. He told me a story that made this whole thing even more incredible. If I wasn't involved in this case myself, I would have never believed it. He told me that he and his girlfriend, along with his brother and his girlfriend, were all involved in a demonic worship group. They had made contact with a demonic force through a Ouija board, and that it was terrorizing them and would follow them wherever they went. He told me his girlfriend was trying to make contact with the demon, and that he now feared for his life and his babies. His brother and his girlfriend no longer wanted to be involved, but Joe's girlfriend was such a controlling force that even they feared her. I knew all along that something more than the paranormal was going on with this case. I had previously asked him about his religious faith, and he lied to me. The wheels were already in motion to have the apartment blessed by a priest, which Lorraine set up. However, now knowing what they were all about, and the fact that they lied to us, I wasn't going to endanger anyone in my group, and Lorraine felt the same way. I have to admit, walking away from this one was tough with a baby being involved. But sometimes you just have to walk away and hope the client can find someone else who can help them. I never heard from them again. We normally would never discuss a case without prior permission from the people involved. However, we were lied to by the clients, and I felt that this story could help show the public, do not play games with the demonic world. The names involved were changed. Hey guys, Extremo here. How's it going? This video was a process, but I did have a lot of fun making it, and I hope you have just as much fun watching. That last story for some reason kind of got to me, because I'm sitting here like, if there is evidence of demonic possession going on in that house, and there is a baby in there, for some reason, me personally, I couldn't just abandon the baby. You know what I mean? Like, I'd have to figure out something or figure out a way to get whatever evil spirits are in there to get them out of there. And I guess there is the case of maybe the demon can attach itself to you, which I understand too. I don't know, what would you guys do in that situation? Feel free to leave a comment below on your thoughts about it. But if you liked it, please feel free to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. I try to upload as quick as possible, but I know these past two videos have just been a weekly thing. Hopefully that's something I can work on and adjust to as I start to edit more of these videos. But if you guys have any stories that you would want featured on this channel, please feel free to send them in. I'd love to read them. And with that being said, I think I have said all I can say. So, yeah, see ya. And thanks for watching.